Hi everyone, this is Stacia, and today I want to talk to you about academics. I've split this presentation into two videos because there's kind of a lot of ground to cover. So this is academics part one, in which we will cover class structure, grading, syllabi, stuff like that, as well as the academic calendar. And part two will include academic requirements, majors, academic resources. And so if that is of more interest to you, feel free to skip to that video. But without further ado, I'll jump right in. Class structure. On day one of the class, or even beforehand on your student website, I have Canvas. I don't know what you guys will have, but you'll receive a syllabus for each class, which will include important information like the day by day schedule, what you'll be talking about each day, as well as what you should do to prepare for each class, assigned readings, assignments, whatever it may be. The syllabus will also include deadlines and exam dates, as well as the grading policy, how much each assignment is worth, we'll get more into grading stuff in a second, but the syllabus will include required materials like whether you need to purchase a textbook or where you can find the readings. Um, it will also have the university policies, which might include disability accommodations. Usually, you'll get pointed in the direction of student disability services who might be able to help if you have something like ADHD and need extra time on exams, they can help sort that out. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to them for that. And then it also will have the academic integrity policies, most likely saying no cheating, no plagiarizing, and then kind of something new but pretty important, they'll have their AI policy. I've noticed in my classes, they have very, very different AI policies per class. And so some classes might say, don't use it at all. Other classes might say, if you use it, I want you to tell me exactly how you used it. And others give you free reign to use it. So definitely look there and see kind of what your professor is expecting from you in that regard. And then it also will have the information on when office hours are and the contact information, the emails for the professors and for the TAs. Um, Grading scale is next. Colleges will usually have their own general kind of grading scale. Here you can see the grading scale at my university. However, some classes will have their own grading scales. For example, organic chemistry might only require that you get a 92 to get an A, whereas as you see on here, the university requires you to get a 95. So it might vary by class. The syllabus will outline the grade distribution, like how much each assignment's worth, whether attendance is worth part of your grade, whether participation is worth part of your grade. So definitely, like I said, look there. And at the end of the semester, your percentage in the class will get converted into a letter grade. So let's say an 88 will become a B plus, as you see on this chart here. And then after you get that class grade, it will be converted into your GPA. And this isn't important for you to know because they do all the calculations themselves. But in case you're interested, it will be the grade. So say you get an A, that's a 4.0. 4.0 times the number of credits, say it's worth 3 credits. Grade times credits, 12, and then that is your total grade points. And so those total grade points, 12, will be divided by the credits, total number of credits, which in this case was 3. And so then say this example is you only taking one class. So very hypothetical, but 12 divided by 3, your GPA will be 4.0. And as you can see here, a 4.0 is the highest GPA you can have. Continuation of grading. In order to pass the class, you usually need a minimum grade of a D, but that will vary a lot based on schools, majors, and yeah, usually majors will have higher standards if it's a required course. Say an econ major might need to get a B minus minimum in microeconomics in order for it to count. Another thing to consider is curves. A lot of classes will curve students' grades to ensure that the class is meeting like a high enough class average. So, for example, if students do poorly on a test, the professor might curve the test. Say I got a 72, but the class average was a 65. My 72, which would usually be like a C, would become maybe an A minus because he's curving that average grade up. And then some entire classes might be curved at the end of the semester. So don't count on these curves, but just know that they exist. So if you get a really bad grade, it might not be the end of the world. Um, and then a few classes that you take might be pass or fail, ungraded classes, and these pass fail classes will not be incorporated into your GPA. Um, Class length. Classes will vary in length based on how often they meet per week. And so a sample kind of distribution at my university is that 50-minute classes meet 3 times a week, 75-minute classes meet 2 times a week, and 2.5 hour classes only meet once a week. And usually your classes will either be on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, for third, excuse me, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And in my opinion, I think if possible, you should avoid Friday classes because if you don't have any classes on Friday, you get to have a long weekend every weekend. So that's a tip. Excuse me. Big lectures, classes with maybe 200 students might also require a discussion section where you have like small group meetings with the TA. But as you're enrolling in those classes, they'll tell you if you need to add that discussion section. It should be pretty clear. And science courses will often have a required lab section, and those labs might be 2 to 3 hours long. So just prepare for that. Usually the class length will correlate to the number of credits. So if you have a really short class, it might be worth less credits. But these lengths I put above are kind of the standard lengths for the standard amount of credits that you would take. And then let's get into the academic calendar. General structure at the beginning of the semester, you'll usually have a little bit of a quieter period because you won't have any assignments due, essays due, or exams yet. Um, then in the fall semester, you'll get a fall break usually, maybe 2 days around early October, nice long weekend. And you'll also get Thanksgiving break, which tends to be 3 days at Thanksgiving. Most colleges, like I said, give just Wednesday, Thursday, which is Thanksgiving, and Friday off. But I've noticed in my time at college that that whole Thanksgiving week, including Monday and Tuesday, are usually pretty chill because professors might be traveling or they know students are traveling. And so maybe classes get canceled or put online. So just think you might get some time off at Thanksgiving, which is nice. Then you'll have winter break, which will be mid-December to mid-January usually, and yeah, count on about a month for that, which is fun. And then spring semester will start, and you'll get a nice week-long spring break around early to mid-March. And then busy periods, the rest of the semester is going to be busy, most likely. Classes will have assignments due throughout, you'll have exams, and then you will have a set finals period at the end of each semester, but I'll talk about that next. Midterms, there's no like specific period for midterms. Usually just the middle of the semester is busy with tests, essays due, stuff like that. Some classes might even have multiple midterms. You might have one in February and then another one in April. So super fun. And then finals period will be a set period at the end of both the fall and the spring semester. And classes will end. You'll get a day, few days to study. And then you'll have the exam period where there's kind of exam blocks interspersed. So I put a sample schedule up here. 3-hour kind of chunks of time to take the exams. You might even have a final on the weekend. I just took an exam on a Saturday, so lots of fun. And then yeah, just a final note that these kind of dates, the calendar is based on a semester system, which most universities follow. But if you know that your university is on the trimester or quarter system, just take into account that this timing might not necessarily be the exact same for your school. So, um, anyways, hopefully this was helpful. Um, there will be a part 2 that will cover more kind of about majors and academic resources, where to find textbooks, stuff like that. So definitely tune into that. But yeah, thank you for your time today and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.